happy Wednesday to you. Hope you all are having a wonderful week and an excellent evening. Welcome to Midnight Hatter Live, the weekly variety show where we talk Gundam, Gunpla, and gaming. I'm your host, Steven, aka Midnight Hatter, your host. And joining me as always, the Blue Gamer, Gundam Explainer, Adam Blue. How are you, man?
Hey. Doing good. I saw your thumbnail yesterday. And I remember we had already kinda talked, but I saw the thumbnail and I'm like, "What is this?" And I didn't know it was Midnight Hatter. I was like, "What is," and I was like, "Oh, yeah." There's no
See,
one else that could make, like, our vision, you know what I mean? When we
yeah.
talk about the Gundam RTS and I see that thumbnail and I'm like, "Nailed it."
Well, and it's so funny because, like, sometimes you and I just don't even talk about, like, what we're going to talk about on these shows, on this or the Gundam Explain show. And so it's like you find out at the same time as everybody else, which is kind of funny.
I
Uh,
know. I know, that is funny how that works.
but yeah, so for those of you who don't know, this evening's show is going to be a little bit different. I feel like I say that like every week. Like every week, we're going to do something different. Um, but it comes from a place of this is going to be. I'm going to skip ahead in our show order to the hobby advice for this week, and it's something that I gleaned from the newsletter that I get from SVS Learn. Which, for those of you guys who don't know, I'm a huge fan of a cartoonist by the name of Jake Parker, and he's the co-founder, along with a couple of other comic book artists, of SVS Learn, which is like a artist comic book illustration learning collective. And they sent out an email that the headline of it just was so striking. Is it was "Let your project be your content." And this is perfect advice for anybody who is a creative that also is a content creator. Is too often what you find is the content creator is trying to make, like, I'm going to make my videos, and then I've got like my project that's like my passion project that's going to be the thing that I'm trying to make. And so what you end up having is, like, you'll have somebody who's their Instagram is just loaded with fan art. It's like they draw tons of Gundam stuff, but then they're trying to make like their own graphic novel, but the graphic novel never goes anywhere because they're constantly making fan art. And I'm guilty of it too, you
Mhm.
know. For those of you guys who are members of the Patreon, like, I put out a 3D model to download every month. I never show that on stream ever. Like, you guys only ever see the finished product. So that's probably something that I'm gonna really take to heart, and I'm gonna start showing the process
Yeah.
behind what I'm doing more often. So in that spirit, tonight, Adam and I, we've always talked about, like, hey, let's make this Gundam game, let's do this, let's do that, and we've tried a couple of times on stream to do this. I feel like tonight we're probably going to make a little bit more progress than we typically do because we are going to be doing some vibe coding, or AI assisted coding. To be honest with you, when I was setting everything up for the stream, last night, earlier today, I almost got ahead of myself because I was like, oh, well, let me just, like, I'll just make like the movement script and like the click to move stuff. And that way, we can get to like the exciting stuff. And I was like, wait a second, that's not really in the spirit of what we're doing here. Let's
Dude.
start
That's
fresh.
funny that you say that. It's almost like when you're playing a video game and you're like, "I'll just finish this level." When I'm coding with AI helping me, it's one of those things where it's because, like, you can usually get over that hurdle quickly with, like, you
Yeah.
just show AI, "Hey, this is wrong. Do you realize it? Or can you oh, yeah, do this." And then you plug it in, "Oh, well, I'm done tonight. Well, you know what? Before I go, I'll just make it to where this can sparkle. AI, can you make it sparkle?" And then I love it.
Well, and it's so funny because, you and I have talked about AI on this show a few times. And one of the first times we did this very experiment where it was like, hey, let's try and have AI create a Unity character controller for us from
Oh, yeah.
scratch. And it's like, back then it would get you about 80% of the way there, but then you'd have to, like, actually know what you're doing and code it yourself the last 20% of the way. I think that it has come so far in just 12 months. I'm pretty sure we're not even going to have to touch code today.
You know what, dude? I'm telling you, I was talking about my day job a little bit before we started, and I was
Yeah.
saying how so much of it was done by there's so much I was able to add to my work because I had the Microsoft Copilot there to help look at my code. Like running queries, that's not a thing I do, but now I know how to. So, dude,
There you go.
this is gonna be amazing.
And dude, like, for my day job, I'm constantly working in spreadsheets, and I hate writing formulas for spreadsheets, especially like for complex formulas like customer lifetime value. One of the things that I have an export that I run out of Shopify that's like I just take a list of all of our customers for the last 10 years, plug it into the spreadsheet, and I'm like, hey, ChatGPT, write me a formula that's going to take the average lifetime expectancy in days of these customers, their first order date, their last order date, subtract it, and then we get their days that they've been a customer, average that out to years, average out the number of orders that they've placed and the total amount that they've spent. And then, so it's like this really complicated. I don't want to have to do that by myself every day. So
Exactly. I know.
Chat GPT does it for me. So
Okay, well, what do you think then would be the first hurdle of coding this RTS game that the AI assisted code will get? Because you were even saying that we might not even have to touch code.
I really don't feel like we will. I mean, aside from copy and pasting,
Right.
right? Like,
Yeah, the copy
if
paste.
you count
What
that,
Yeah, so what do you think the first thing or what have you done so far to get this
I'm
prepared?
glad you asked. Like, let's just
Okay.
hop straight into it.
Yeah.
I don't want to waste any more time, gild the lily any further. Um, I think everyone's excited to kind of see where we're going to go with this. So, here we've got I just created a Unity project, not going to do the thing that we did last time where it was like we had to install Unity and do all of that stuff. That was terrible. And we didn't get anywhere. So what I've done here is I just created a basic 3D project. We've got a scene with a plane, we've got a camera, and then I imported a couple of environmental assets and then a bunch of mobile suits. These are actually from the Gundam diorama front, and I went ahead and like, I don't know if you're going to be able to see this very well. So we've got a GM here that I rigged up with some animations.
Wow.
It's not the best, but I think that this is
I'm
going to
just
do
seeing it.
pretty nicely for us. I love that this is like a handgun animation and he's like kind of holding the beam spray gun in that.
Yeah. Going out to battle.
So, what I think we need to do first is let's pull up ChatGPT and we're just going to like lead in with our prompt, right? So like we're trying to create or we're creating a Gundam RTS game in Unity 3D. Call me out if you see any typos because I'm terrible at that.
Hey, ChatGPT will know.
Yeah. Can you help create a camera, an isometric camera? That way we can get that like,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, right? An isometric camera using Cinemachine. That'll make things easier on us if we don't have to like actually script the camera. If we can just use Cinemachine to like follow a target, that'll make life a little faster. Um, a point and click to move script with a nav mesh, uh, where right click selects a unit and left click designates its destination, and a unit script to handle movement. Um, Eventually, units will be scriptable objects. That's going to allow us in the future to basically create units on the fly. We'll basically be able to say like right click, create new unit. Okay, which model do you want to use? Which animation set do you want to use? What weapons are you going to give it? What are its stats? That's going to make it so much easier to
And something else, like if we're looking at Steven's prompt right here, you can see that Steven knows the way he's wording it is he actually kind of knows the wording, the technology, so because it's almost like you're speaking to a fellow developer, not just a random guy. Because if you don't, even though it's AI, if you don't know what you're talking about, the AI is not going to be able to help.
exactly. That's a lot of people kind of use these like basically like Google. They use them as search engines. And
Yeah.
so they'll just type like a random word that they're looking for, but the real advantage of using this is that you should be as specific as possible. List every constraint that you have, list every objective. I've seen like sometimes my boss will try to like tease the AI and be like, "Hey, I have a business where my product is in member components and we sell it in dozens, and so we need an inventory tracking system." And I was like, dude, just tell it you sell
Tell it
golf balls.
exactly.
Like,
Yeah,
don't, you
I know.
because the more it knows, the better it can serve you. So
Exactly.
so yeah, Gundam RTS game, Unity 3D, isometric camera, Cinemachine, point to click move script with a nav mesh, right click selects, left click designates the destination. You know what we also need? We need some camera controls. So I'm thinking
Oh,
where
WASD or something?
camera is controlled
Or mouse.
via WASD or arrow keys.
Yeah, I'm glad you put both because I hate it when an RTS only offers one option.
It's so frustrating, man. Um, we can adjust um, stats and models and animations. All right, let's see what it comes up with here.
Nice. Um, okay.
And
And
just
sometimes it
okay,
does the thing where it's almost like helping you, where it kinda
mm,
goes on for a little bit just to be like, "Well, here's the steps,"
yeah.
which is helpful. Um,
So here, it basically did exactly what I'm saying to do. Is like we create like a dummy game object where essentially the WASD keys, the arrow keys, are going to be controlling an invisible game object, and the camera is going to be tracking that object, and that's going to manage how the camera moves instead of the keys physically moving the camera. The camera's just following a target. Um. Well,
and the
let's.
is that do you think a lot of RTSs do it that way, where there's, like, an invisible object that the developers use that as the camera when it's not, like, a specific object? Or are there other ways that's
That's a
done?
good question. I mean,
Because I
because
wonder if it's the thing of, "Oh, we always do it this way," but or maybe it's more of it's up in the air. I don't know.
well, let's
Ask ChatGPT. No, joking. We're not gonna do that right now. Or
let's
maybe.
see. So what kind of camera did it tell me to create here? So we want to create a new virtual camera. So the advantage of like Cinemachine is that it has all of these pre-built in settings. Like, you know, you could do this just using the camera and like manually script these things in. And I think that like some developers do. But as things get easier, like, dude, we can just
Yeah.
come in here, create a virtual camera, and then let me unlock my properties here. So the Cinemachine brain down here has all these variables that are preset where it's like, okay, when do you want it to update in the in the order of events? How do you want it to blend? Do you want to do just like hard cuts or do you want to like ease into it? Do you want to do like a round robin transition? So we're going to do an ease in and ease out. Um, Yeah, see, here we go. We've got our Cinemachine virtual camera. Right now, it does not have a target, so that's what we need to add in here. Um, so we want to set our body to framing transposer. Virtual camera, body, framing transposer. And then, oh, come here. We're going to set the follow to a dummy object, e.g. camera rig. So let's create an empty object. We're going to
And real
call
quick,
it.
import that automatically does all that?
That's a good question. And I
You might.
definitely just hit the wrong keyboard. I was, like, switching scenes on the,
Oh.
on the stream like an idiot.
Oh. 'Cause that's
But
something
yeah,
too, like, when sometimes the ChatGPT is giving me instructions of steps, I'll be like, "Hey, is there a way that you can automate this for me?" And sometimes it will create a little file that I can run.
and sometimes that works. I think that, like, with some of this stuff, like, for instance, in our RTS controls input actions, I don't think that we're gonna be able to That's what I forgot to add in. So let me check if it knows that we're using the input system. Ah, see, no, it's using the old input system. So let me update this. Can you update these scripts to use the new Unity input system? Now, this is an important step because, as we've talked about on the show before, the Unity input system makes it so that porting between different consoles and things is a lot easier. You can just like add in action maps for different consoles, different PCs, and things like that. Whereas if we did it using the old input system, like the old input manager, we would have to hard code in like if
Every
it's PS4, press
uh,
square. If it's Xbox, press X. You know that
that's an
kind of stuff.
example of sort of an automation that's been created, so you don't have to keep doing that every time. Yeah.
Yeah. Now it's not as beautiful as all that. Let's see. So we got our new input action set up. Let's see here. So this is our camera controller with the new input system. I think we still need to create some things in the scene though. So we're going to set follow to the dummy object, virtual camera. We're going to set it here. So now our camera is going to be following the virtual object. Let's see what else we've got. Look at is null. Offset is going to be x 0, 20, negative 20 for the isometric angle. So offset 0, 20. Oh, I did it again. I keep hitting the wrong keyboard. This is what happens when you're working on multiple computers all at once.
I know. I've done it before, and I've typed weird things into the wrong computer and hit enter. Nothing bad, but, it's just kinda funny when that happens.
Yeah. Binding mode, we want that set to world space, and then I think we are going to be good. Look at is null. Binding mode. See, and these are things that like sometimes you just wouldn't know.
Yeah. I've even had it sometimes where I've asked ChatGPT, "Can you explain why I'm doing this?" And then that can sometimes help me work with it a little bit more.
Oh yeah, like can you give an example? Like
Yeah, what was there's something called Databricks. It's in Azure, and basically Databricks is a way I might be getting this wrong, where you can build your own LLM, large language model. But I didn't know that. I kept hearing people talk about Databricks, or so, and like integrate it with data and have, but I kept hearing the terminology to describe the feature, but not the function for it. So I was like, hey, well, ChatGPT, what does this do? Oh, it does that. Okay. Well, in that case, can I do this or that? And I feel like it's good for research purposes, even just general research purposes. Where I was talking to you about before this, the music
yeah,
bands and finding music that way. Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
nice. I don't see a binding mode, but I think we'll be
Hey,
okay.
you could screenshot that and give it to ChatGPT and say, "Hey, there's no binding mode,"
That's true.
and it will usually say,
I
"Oh, it's
might
moved
end up
here,"
doing
or
that.
yeah.
So like so now let's go into our input system here. We're gonna add a action map. We'll just call it ooh, I almost did it again. We're gonna call it default if it'll let me. And what do we need here? So we need a move action, we need a left click, we need a right click, and we need a pointer pose. Well, it wants me to call the action map player, but well, maybe I should call it player just to be consistent, right?
Yeah, I guess it makes sense because I guess technically is a player.
Nope. Let's rename this controls. We'll delete that one. So it wants me to call this player. And we're going to have a move, a left click, a right click. So let's rename this to move. Man, this autosave is killing me. It's like every time I make a change, it wants to do something. So let's add an action, left click, add an action, right click. And what was the last one called? I think it was just pointer position. Yep. All right. Now this is going to be a value. And what do we want it to be? WASD and the arrow keys. So our binding is going to be keyboard. It's thinking about it. Oh. This is a lot in here. Virtual mouse. What if we do just arrow keys? Keyboard. I wonder why it's not letting me.
Ask ChatGPT.
That could be what we need
Or
to do.
because I've gotten over that whole thing. I know it's hard for men sometimes, but, like, when the wife is like, "Can you just stop and ask for directions?" And it's like, "No, no, no. No,
I'm
no,
going to do this.
no." But I have totally resigned myself to I think it's because I choose what things I wanna spend my time with, like playing a video game.
There could be like see, this is what's interesting is it's got the like W, but maybe there's a way that we need to set it up as a value here. Um so we've got our input max. All right. Action type is value. Control type is vector2. That's where we're not. That's where I was missing it. Control type is a vector2. I knew there was something that we were missing there. Well, we don't want. How come keyboard's not there anymore? Um, well, we'll consult the guru over here.
Yeah.
Add these bindings to the composite, up, down, left, right. And then we have to do the same thing with the keyboard ones. Okay. I see now. So let's delete that. There we go. W. S. Left is going to be A. Come on now. There we go. And right is going to be D. And then we're going to want to add another composite. And this one's going to be up, down, left, and right. Up arrow. Down arrow. This is the exciting part of game development, you guys. Keyboard, uh, usages. Nope, not the back button. It's interesting how sometimes it will listen for a key, and sometimes it's like, no, no, you need to navigate to the key.
Wow. Well,
Right arrow.
hey, you know that stuff more than me.
So now we've got our camera move set up. This one should be pretty easy because it's just going to be a left click. Well, it's not going to be a key, is it? It's going to be a... Nope, not that. Mouse. Usages. Nope. Okay, here we go. Mouse. Left button. Right click is going to be, guess what? Right button. Now, the pointer position, I think, is actually going to be one of those vectors as well.
Hmm.
If I am, maybe I'm guessing. Oh no, it's mouse position, but it is a value. So we're going to go value. It's going to be a delta. And the path is going to be the mouse. Mouse position was not one in there. Well, let's consult the expert here, because it says mouse position, and I don't want
Yeah.
to go doing the wrong thing here.
Yeah, when I was querying in Azure, it kept using the wrong Azure language. So I had to
Oh,
that was
really?
another example where I had to keep saying, "Oh no, this isn't the Azure word. You have to use the Azure language." Because I would get an error and I'd show the error and it'd be like, "Well, it says this is wrong, but that's," and it's like, "Well, that's not the Azure language." So
No, you're wrong.
yeah,
Oh, see, it was a vector too. See here, I was thinking it was a delta.
those damn deltas.
And again, this is one of those things where, like I said, um, these are things that you could find on Reddit. You could find them in the Unity documentation. You could find them like on Stack Overflow. But the problem is a lot of the use cases are going to be specific to something else. Whereas by interfacing with a large language model like ChatGPT, they're telling you like specifically, here's what you need, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really good point. And it kind of goes back to that search, that we were talking about the Google search. It's like, yeah, might as well use ChatGPT, be specific, and or Claude, or I think you and I just use ChatGPT, but
Yeah,
uh,
I've kind of defaulted to it for a lot of tasks.
same here.
But like obviously I'll still use like a regular search engine for things like if I'm shopping for something. Like
Ah,
if I'm
yeah,
looking for Gunpla, like I don't go to ChatGPT and say, "Where can I buy a Psycho Gundam Mark II?"
yeah,
Like no, I'm just going to search Google for a Psycho Gundam Mark II.
yeah,
Um so there are, everything's a tool, and some
yeah.
tools are better than others for certain things. Let's put it that way. Now, what does it want me to name this script? I'm pretty sure it was something basic like camera controller. Yep, camera controller. I just want to make sure that we have all the names are the same no matter what. I just did it again. No, I don't want to remove Adam from the scene.
Is that the keyboard? Wrong keyboard?
Yeah, I keep going to my desktop keyboard when I should be on my laptop keyboard.
And I don't know if I updated you on this, but did I tell you where I actually totally removed my second computer?
That's
Because
smart.
it kept bothering me. I thought I needed it, and I kind of, but it's like it would, yeah, all that stuff all the time. But that's just me.
We've got all of our error messages that come up every time I open up VS Code. Look at that. I'm not even. I'm not typing anything, I'm not messing with anything, we're just gonna put it in, save it, call it good. Next thing we need is that player controller, I believe, and this is for selection and movement of the units. So, oh, you know what? Actually, yeah, this is for the input action. Okay. Wanted to make sure we have it on the right one. So let's create a new C# script. We're going to open up that one. And again, this is like the boring part, right? We're setting up like the basic character controllers. We're not doing anything super exciting yet. One of the things that like I definitely want to make sure that we implement is having both ranged and melee attacks for mobile suits, and maybe even like multiple attack types depending on the individual mobile suit, because typically in an RTS game it's like, I mean, I don't know, which ones have you played, Adam? Because like I never played like Command and Conquer or any of the actual RTSs. I only ever
Played
played
'em all,
like Star Wars
dude.
Galactic Battlegrounds.
Oh. Well, that's a good one because that usually features all of the robustness from an RTS, but yeah, I'm a huge RTS fanatic. I've played them all. The most recent Tempest Rising, which was a Command& and Conquer remake, pretty much, different IP, 3D Realms. Um, there's yeah, so I see where you're going here because I think as we start creating what the base is, there's those little things you're talking about, like, what are the little nuances of this RTS that we're gonna wanna take into account? Like, do we want where each unit's gonna have multiple weapon types? Do you equip that or do you build them that way, you know?
It's a good question. Um, Yeah, because like, I remember in Galactic Battlegrounds, like, Jedi were primarily melee units, like, they would have to get in close to do damage, but, like, a mobile suit, I think, should be able to do both, and maybe it just
Yeah.
has different radiuses, and maybe it
Oh,
has
yeah.
a preference. Like, for instance, if we created, like, a Barbados unit, it would have a preference for getting into melee, but like sometimes obviously situations would dictate that it can't for whatever reason. Maybe there's like different elevations and things. Another thing that I was thinking is like, what about terrain types? And this would primarily, apply to movement speeds and then the animations. But like, if you had space versus land, the animations would be the mobile suits running, whereas space they would be like flying.
Yeah, there's that whole thing. You know what? You really gave me a good idea here because I feel like the way the terms in which we speak on how this game works is how we always talk about we want that Gundam simulator where we're in the mech and we're moving around. So we just do that from an RTS perspective. Because I liked how you talk about the terrain, even if it was mud.
Yeah.
Think of mud, slow down the units. I also loved what you said about the radius. So let's say there's the different radii. I don't know if that's plural, but it could be that because I don't know if this happens often in RTS where you'll have a ranged unit that then gets in close, maybe like a special character, but I would see a GM as the main, like, frontline unit that's both ranged and melee. That's new and different because I love that idea of the radius. And yeah, let's say it's a Zaku 2 that's shooting. And maybe the radius makes the GM think, oh, I actually can win with a beam saber because the Zaku's in this radius.
Or it could be even as simple as like, if, let's say, for instance, the Gundam itself prefers ranged combat, but its movement speed is only like 5, whereas the movement speed of a Rick Dom is 7. And so the Rick Dom can close that gap and get within melee range before the
Yeah,
Gundam can attack.
that is a really good
And
example.
so it's like
Yeah.
you'll have units that are slow but prefer ranged combat, but then when a unit gets within their range and can't, and it's like, okay, you're no longer within ranged range, it engages in melee combat. So there's like, this is where I think that Gundam could make a cool RTS that a lot of
Yeah.
RTSs that I know of like haven't done things like this before. Am I right?
No, you are right, and I would think the closest to it, but it still lacks a lot, is the Relic, I forgot, Relic Games, what Company of Heroes. Uh,
Yeah.
and they did Dawn of War also, but Company of Heroes has a lot of that because of World War II and it's real stuff. There's a lot more individual tactics, for squads and units, and that I think that's the type of treatment we can give Gundam. I mean, There's both. I would be down for just the RTS slop where it's like, let's just mass Zerg rush, Zaku rush. But I do think you can make a really good Gundam RTS if you kind of stick to the lore of the suits in the universe. Yeah.
Agreed.
Oh, autonomous Warzone 2100 has a modular building system for vehicles at least, so that could be a way of making various units with minimal effort. Yeah, that's a thing. Sometimes you build the war factory, and then you can build the upgrade to then build a certain type of unit. There's so many ways to go about that. It's really like insane.
So what we need to do is we need to add our camera controls. I believe it said to add to. We're going to assign the controls to the input action asset. We need a game manager. So let's put in a empty object. We're going to call it game manager. Let's go ahead and just set it at 000. I like everything to be at like default position, and it wants us to add our player input component to both the camera rig and a new game manager object. So controls to the game manager. No, you're not going to do it. Input, player input. And then on the camera, we're going to go input, player input. We're going to put our controls.
Oh, Alan Mitchell bringing up Halo Wars. That is a really good RTS also. And I initially was like, what? An Xbox RTS with a controller? But it worked. In a sequel on PC with a mouse and keyboard is a top tier RTS for
Yeah.
sure. Yep.
See, I don't mind playing an RTS on a console as long as it's got,
Yeah,
controls that are conducive to that, right?
yeah, and I think Microsoft nailed it with Halo. Although there were others, like on the PS1, they had a 3D Command and Conquer, or no, that was N64. PlayStation had Command and Conquer and Red Alert and all that, but I never played them.
Hmm. So it says to set the behavior to send messages or invoke Unity events. I'm just going to do send messages then. And on each relevant game object, hook up the methods camera rig on move and game manager. I think it doesn't want send messages because I think we want to invoke Unity events. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to invoke Unity events. And this is where it's cool, like, part of the input system is because so we have the input system attached to two different game objects in the scene, but both of them are only listening for very specific events. So the camera rig is only going to be listening for that on move event. So camera rig events, let's do player, and we want it to be runtime only. Camera rig, we're going to drop that into the object here. Is the on move. I don't see on move in here. Because this is where we're referencing the script that's attached to it. And maybe it's because I don't have the camera controller attached to our camera rig. So if I go to events now, we've got our camera rig, player, camera controller, on move. There we go. That's what we're looking for. Game manager, that we're going to drop our player controller script onto. So there's a lot of like interdependencies on here. Left click. We're going to need our game manager, player controller, and what do we need? On left click. On right click, same thing. Game manager, drop it in here. We select our function, player controller. On right click. Pointer position. Boring stuff here, like I said. on pointer position. Just go ahead and save just to,
Just think about if you didn't have, the Chat GPT to kinda help guide, where would you be? Probably just researching where to get started.
probably. Look at this. So to bring it back to an earlier question you asked, would you like an input actions file ready to import with this configuration, or shall I scaffold the prefab and scene structure next? I didn't think that it had the ability to build out something that could be imported directly into Unity.
Yeah, try it. It is insane, but you do come across stuff where it can't do that. But I sometimes try to check. Um,
So the next thing we have to do is we've got to create this unit that is going to be oh yeah, here's our scriptable object that we're going to need. So let's go ahead and we're going to create a C# script called unit data. We will attach these to our individual units, and this will be where we expand stuff out. It's where we're going to have faction data so that we can have like special abilities. We can add in our range, our damage, HP, all of that good stuff. Right now, all it's got is the unit name, move speed, model, and runtime animator, which is
and it's
really,
saying future proofing because is it trying to tell you like, yeah, use this and you can modify it? Uh,
yep.
that's just another little context. It anticipates, you know?
Yeah,
Yeah.
because basically the scriptable object is just a container of variables, and then the unit controller is the script that's going to pull those variables and say like, okay, when I have this unit, which model do I load for it? When I have this unit, what is its HP? What is its name? What is its faction? That kind of stuff. So right now we just have name, speed, model, animator. Pretty easy. But I think that as we build out the complexity, that's when we're going to have like different radiuses, different damage levels, different weapon types, things like that.
Yeah. And I think the RTS is one of the most scope creepable games I think you can make. It feels like.
Dude, you are not kidding. So let's drop in this game object here. We're just going to, I didn't want to do that because that's okay. We're going to rename it. We're just going to call it a GM. And we'll go in and grab the GM that I had earlier on screen. Let's just go to the folder, and we're going to drop the GM. That's going to be a child object of the GM object. Now, one of the things I've noticed about these models is that they are incredibly tiny. So we're going to bump up the scale on this guy quite a bit, by 1,000. And see, even at 1,000 scale, it's still tiny on the map, but that's okay. That's all we
Yeah,
need.
I guess that's another scope creep aspect. How do we know the size that we're gonna like the scale? We don't really even know.
Right. Like when you're working in this format, it's like, is this a small map? Is it a medium map? Like, I have no idea. And
Yeah.
it's relative to the units, right? So, like, if I decide, hey, this unit is now 10,000, that's a small map.
Yeah.
But I think that that's a healthy size for what we've got going on here.
Yeah. Especially my dream RTS, which would be actually a Zaku rush. It would be tons of Zakus, tons of GMs just clashing, and then there would be Char Zaku too, and the RX-78 at the front lines clashing. That's
Dude, I love it. The Zerdku Rush.
yeah.
All right. So now we've got that on there. The next thing we do is we actually need to bake a nav mesh onto here. So that's one of the things that I don't have on screen right now. Rendering, animation, audio, sequencing. What we need is our navigation, because we need a nav mesh on here. And it's like, I know that we've got, like, I can come up here and do nav mesh agent, and I've got nav mesh obstacles, but where's my nav mesh components? I might actually need to import that as a package. So from the Unity registry, let's look up nav, AI navigation. It's not installed. See? It's interesting that
And
it'll allow you to create a nav mesh agent without having the AI navigation package installed.
is it made by Unity?
Yeah, this is by Unity.
Oh, it's just a separate you just have to install it separately.
Yeah, it's kind of like Cinemachine. Like Cinemachine is like a whole camera suite, and like I said, if you don't want to use
Oh,
it, you don't have to, and
'cause
it
you might
saves you a
not.
bunch of space. Like if you know,
Yeah,
um, for instance, like if I were gonna make a uh like an like an old school Resident Evil game, I don't need Cinemachine because all of the cameras are gonna be fixed
that
angles anyway. So I just put the camera where it is. That's
which, by the way, I know you're a Resident Evil fan, and I don't think we talked about the 9 reveal.
we
Is
have not.
That's cool.
Yeah, what do you think of it? How did like just
Well,
the teaser that we got?
it made me jump back into 8 because that's the only one I haven't finished yet. Um, but I was having trouble enjoying myself. It's just
Really?
because it's especially after the 4 and 2 remakes, I kinda like that. Um, Although 8's supposed to have the 3rd person, maybe I should try that and it makes it feel different. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, for me, 7 and 8 were both, like, very different. They weren't as campy as
Right.
usual.
And I liked 5 and 6.
I liked 5. 6 was a little much for me.
I But
Um,
6, I mean, I liked it, but I knew it was a departure from what we'd expect. It was like a full-on action game, if I remember correctly.
it
Like, it was
was.
fast pa and I kinda liked it because I remember there was a lot more, like, movement to your character, I think, if I remember correctly. It was, yeah, not the right direction, but it was also co-op. And yeah, it's
Yeah, I do like co-op Resident Evil games. Like, Revelations was one, I think, that had
Dude,
a sequel.
yeah, we should stream Resident Evil co-op. We should
Hell yeah,
try to
man.
find one that
Absolutely.
we'd both wanna play. I think that would be fun.
Um, so you probably noticed, like, the ground here turned blue. What that
Yeah.
is I baked a nav mesh onto our plane here, and blue indicates what the walkable areas are. So, in theory, we should be able to play this game now, and we should be able to click
Click
on our GM and
and
move
move it.
it,
That would be
provided
amazing.
there's nothing else that we need to do. Now, it only took us, what, 48 minutes to do all that?
Nah, I mean, but hey, for just, "Hey, let's make a game live on stream." If we can click it and move it, that's pretty amazing. If not, let's screenshot whatever and ChatGPT, fix this. I'm live right now.
Yeah. Please, ChatGPT, fix it for me. Um, all right, so let's see. I just wanna make sure that we didn't miss anything. Pointer position. Yeah, I think we should be good to test this out. Let's hop into play mode here. The first thing we're gonna do is obviously test out the camera, see if oh, look at that. The camera is
Whoa.
in fact moving, and it moves with both the WASD keys and the arrow keys. Now, obviously, we've got our GM here posing,
T-pose
T posing for dominance. Oop.
for dominance.
um, so this just indicated that we have an error here. So, variable main camera of the player controller has not been assigned. You probably need to assign it in the inspector. Sometimes that happens.
A
So if we go
and
into game manager,
it's
player
actually pretty cool
controller,
that Unity's giving you that much detail in the first place.
exactly. So we drop in main camera. That should, oh, we actually need it in two places. Main camera, and then the other thing we needed was exception while executing player right click mouse button. I think that just had to do with it didn't have something to reference because it didn't have the main camera. So it's a two-step
Yeah.
issue there. Now, one of the other things that I would love to do with this, once we get it like to a place where it's really cooking, is right now the camera is in perspective mode, which is cool. Like we can kind of see in perspective. But in the future, I think it would be cool to set the camera mode to orthographic and then even to add a pixel filter on it so that it looks like a 2D camera instead of a see we got a we got another error here. So let's see what we got here. Unit is not defined. So the unit needs a name, does it? Is that really what it is? Oh, it's because it doesn't have a tag. So we need to add a tag to it. We're going to call it unit. I am surprised that I missed that, to be honest with you.
Well,
All right. Failed to create agent because it's not close enough to the nav mesh. That's an interesting one. We don't want any base offset. We don't need an animator, so we're just going to remove that. Unit controller. All right, we're going to try this one more time. Still says failed to create an agent because it's not close enough to the nav mesh, but I'm not sure what that means. Maybe we'll ask ChatGPT here in a minute.
yeah.
So now we're not getting any game breaking errors, but we cannot select our GM and move it. So let's see
And
what we got here.
that seems to be just due to Unity not recognizing it, maybe? Is that what
I think
you're
that's
saying?
exactly what's going on here. Is for whatever reason this nav mesh agent is not being created, even though we baked the nav mesh, so it knows that there's walkable area. It just doesn't know that there's a thing that can walk on it.
Yeah.
So let's see. On preview launch, I am seeing this error with my unit. See what it says.
Yeah.
Your game object is not properly positioned on the baked nav mesh, so it cannot initialize. Okay. Make sure that it is marked as navigation static, has a navigation area, default is walkable, click bake. So it might be that it's too close to it.
Huh.
Sometimes that's the case. So the collider is working. It is walkable. Render meshes. It is a humanoid agent. So let's look over here. We've got a humanoid agent, base offset 0. And these are all like stats that are relevant to like the pathfinding AI. And you can reference these, which is really cool. So like if we wanted to change the movement speed of a unit, we would dictate that in the scriptable object, but then the scriptable object would have to tell the nav mesh agent, hey, I know your default speed is 3.5, reduce it by 20% or increase it by 50%, whatever the case may be. Well, let's see how this works now that I've just lifted the unit up.
Yeah.
It still says that it was too close. Or not close enough, I should say. See, and it's like way up in the air. So it's definitely not that. Let's see what our agent. Close this stuff up. Let's see what we've got here. That is marked static. It is walkable. Tag, we don't really need a tag on it. It's on the default layer. What else did it say here? Move the agent to the nav mesh. Or we can automatically snap it to the nav mesh on start. So maybe it was too high. See what happens here. Interesting that the error was gone now.
Okay, so could this be it?
Yeah,
Oh,
see, look how it teleported to the top of
yeah,
the.
the surface, but you can't click on it?
Yeah, we're unable to click on it. All right. Well, let's consult the guru here. Um, let's see what we've got here. It needs a collider. So let's put on a capsule collider. How big are we going to make this thing? Height. I don't know. We make it 10. Set the Y position to 5. I don't see it in the gizmos here, which is interesting. Usually you see the collider. Oh, I kind of see it in there. It's like hidden. So let's change the radius to like 3. See, there it is. You can kind of faintly see that green capsule there. Let's set the height to 15. We'll set this to 7.5. That looks like it's perfectly encapsulating the GM head and everything.
Yeah.
And then I'm actually going to move it closer to where our starting position of the camera is because I'm tired of moving all the way over there. In
Smart.
fact, I might even change the move speed of our camera to like 30. See how that. All right. So it's not the collider. What else do we have here? Tags and layers. And we already did that. We created it as a unit. Input action, right click, type button, binding, mouse right button. Um, you know what? RTS controls. Just looking all. No? Okay. Interesting. Because, like, this is my current input actions. But if I come in here and I open it up, we still have it. Right click, right button, derive bindings. So it should be there. Game manager, events, player, right click, on right click. So all of that stuff is right. So let's add our little debug log and see if we're getting any anything in there. So in our player controller, we're just going to replace this with that. And then this will probably be, if we can get this thing to work, this will probably be how we wrap up the show, because
That would be.
obviously we have been going for about an hour.
And if we didn't, stay tuned next episode.
Yeah, honestly, this is, I definitely want to keep this going just out of pride at this point.
Yeah, even if it's just like 20 minutes or 30 minutes of like, hey, let's update.
Okay, so down here in our console, you can see, here, I'll actually stop the game and show you guys. We did hit the GM with our raycast, so that is working. But nothing happened, right? I mean, in theory, we should be able to move it. So maybe it's not the selection that's failing. Maybe it's just the move script.
Oh.
There you go.
But
So,
how easy of a fix is that?
well, let's take a look. The debug log shows a raycast hit on our unit, but the left click to move is not working. Let's see what we've got here. See, look how enthusiastic this is. This is what bugs me, is like, if I were talking to somebody on Discord or on Reddit about this, they'd be like, "You fucking idiot. You shouldn't even be making a game." This
Exactly.
ChatGPT is so sweet. It's like, "Awesome. Hey, man, we're so close. Come
So
on."
just think of someone that's younger that is using ChatGPT to gather information and how friendly it is, and the better demeanor to build better habits.
You
Yeah.
know, it kinda makes you wonder, like,
Yep.
alright. So maybe there's something that I need to do in the, like, the layers on the actual, you know, on the actual plane where we're casting the ray cast of where we click to move. So this is going to go into the on left click method. We're just going to select this out, paste, save it up, and let's see if it tells me where my raycast is hitting when we play. In theory, it should tell me regardless of whether I have the GM selected or not. Oh, interesting. So the right click is registering, hit the
Oh,
GM, but the left click is not doing anything. So maybe our left click is not set up correctly. Events, player, left click, player controller is on left click. So if no left click to play, so you're not receiving input callback, double check your player input component, set to send messages, method name must be on left click. I feel like that's what we did. We did the invoke Unity events,
yeah.
which I like. That is so much better because you have like the drop downs and you can just select like exactly what script you want to fire. So let's look in our controls. Left click is a button, bound to mouse left button under the same action map. So left click is a button, left button on the mouse, because I don't think it would be anything else. What if I just change it to press? You know, why not?
Yeah.
Events, player, Left click. That's all set up. Because I am on a trackpad, not on like a proper mouse.
Oh,
And maybe that is what's messing me up.
yeah, that'd be interesting.
Yeah, still not hitting anything. If we go to our console, like when I use the right click, we get the right click received. Left click is not coming through. Sorry, Adam, we are going to figure this out.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Is-
I'm all in on this.
you're in it now.
Yeah.
Um, let's open the input debugger. Whoa. Interesting. That's not exactly what I was anticipating with the input debugger. I thought it was actually going to like, it wasn't just going to do that. Let's see what we've got here. So it's under the same player action map. We've got that. Selected unit is not null. Well, maybe it is. Who knows? Before the click check. Oh, I did it again. I keep going to the wrong keyboard. Selected unit. Let's see what we've got here. So in theory, if I click, it should say selected unit is null, which it doesn't, which means that it's still not registering left clicks. Interesting. I wonder if perhaps left click should be attached to the game manager, right? Or is it supposed to be attached to the camera? Great question. Depends on where the action. So it should be on the game manager or wherever your player controller script is. Okay. It's there. That is how we have it set up, right? So the player input is attached to both the camera rig and the game manager. Camera rig only takes the WASD and arrow keys, whereas the player controller has the pointer click, pointer position, and right click, left click. No, I don't want to combine them. But let's see. With the debug line, the left click is still not registering, even though we have it assigned in the action map. We are using invoke Unity events and calling it from the game manager object. See what it comes back with. Action name, left click, action type, button. All right, let's do this. Sanity check, Unity quirks to watch out for.
That's good.
Good to know. I can appreciate that. All right. So let's add this left click debug that it's telling us about. Oh, looks like I deleted too much. So let's just see if we're registering left clicks at all. Okay, so we've got some
The
left clicks showing up in the console down there.
Okay.
So that part is working. Um, can you rewrite the left click behavior? I always like to like feed its code back to it and say like, hey, this is what you did. It worked. Can you feed it back to me?
Yep.
And see, this is where having the free plan kind of hurts you because you sit here
Oh.
waiting for a response.
Oh, okay.
No, I'm sure that's not it.
Oh. Well, yeah, I remember hitting those limitations pretty quick, but I was going pretty crazy, I guess. Yeah.
Well, and especially when you do upload screenshots and things like that, obviously you're gonna hit some brick walls.
Yeah.
But one of the things that like we can do while we're waiting for our answer here is like obviously we are going to want to create an animation controller. And this I would just, we'll call it animator. And the only thing I would create, honestly, actually, let's delete that. We want to create a blend tree, and it's going to be a pretty basic blend tree. We'll call it locomotion. And this will control all of our animations. So like we'll say speed is the moving force, right? And we'll want to add motion fields for uh we really just want it to be 1 and 0, right? And from here we would say like we need an idle animation. So like this is handgun idle. We'll put that at 0 and then run. I guess this is handgun run. Oh, that's handgun run backwards. We don't want that. That's run left, run right. Please be run forward. Okay. So basically all I did was create a blend tree so that when we're not moving at all, obviously we have an animation here where the GM is just standing still. But as we ramp up our speed, if I grab this, come on, give me my, as we ramp up our speed, you see he starts to jog. And when he gets full speed, he's like a full sprint. And so
That's
really all we're going to have to do is in script, we'll reference, hey, if the unit is moving, crank it up to 1. If it's not, set it to 0.
nice.
And we'll refresh this and see if we get an answer. Come on, OpenAI AI, don't screw me on this. All right. Unity setups for left click. Oh, I feel like I already answered this. Worked and is registering clicks. Can you rewrite the desired behavior method? And let's maybe not have typos. Perfect. So let's grab this. And in here on our left click script, we're just going to replace it with what we got from ChatGPT. And then it wants me to replace this with a move to, well, let's do that because we don't want to lose our require not nav mesh agent. All right, last test, and then we're going to bed.
All right.
I feel like I say that a lot.
Yeah, that's what we were talking about before, right? AI keeps making you wanna keep going and going.
And now we got nothing.
No?
Nope.
Hmm. Well,
Man,
we will get it.
we certainly will. Uh, in the words of Terrence Howard, next time.
When did he say
Oh,
that?
in Iron Man.
Oh, but there wasn't a next time.
No, there wasn't a next time, not for him anyway. That's the joke.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's funny. That's funny. That was the joke? 'Cause I did and that was such a random thing, like Terrence Howard? That
um,
that's funny.
but yeah, and we didn't even get to talk about Gquuuuuux tonight, which is a bummer. I guess we'll
Ooh,
have to talk about it
tomorrow.
tomorrow. I do have some reactions from my daughter. She was watching it with
Oh,
me, and she had some excellent comments. So we'll
there
wait
you
for the spoiler discussion, I guess, over on the Gundam Explained show. I'll tell you about all the silly things that she said to do with the last episode.
oh, that'll be
And
fun.
in the meantime, we'll figure out what's going on with this thing and why we can't do something so basic as a point to click to move function.
We'll find out it was something so basic.
Yeah,
It that's usually how that stuff works.
yeah, you know how it is. But yeah,
Yep.
thank you guys so much for hanging out with us, for bearing with the technical difficulties as always. We are going to make this thing work. We're going to make a functional Gundam RTS with some, I think, cool features. I love
Yes.
the idea of different terrain types. I love the idea of different attack types and unit tactics. There's just so much potential there.
Yeah, exactly. It gets me excited just thinking about it. Just again, the thumbnail. Yeah, that's all I needed.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Adam. And yeah, if you haven't watched Adam's review of Double Zeta. Well, it's more of like a retrospective on
Oh
Double Zeta.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Dude, loved it.
Okay, cool. Yeah, trying to connect, like make it make sense because some people just skip it. You know, but it's cool because in the age of getting comments on videos usually negative, there was a lot of people saying, "Oh, you like Double Zeta too? Yeah, Double Zeta is underrated." And I was like, "Oh,
There
nice.
you go.
I know. That's
Yeah,
cool."
and Double Zeta got brought up a lot in the discussion of the last episode of Gquuuuuux, so I'm excited to talk about that
Mhm.
as well.
Yeah, that'll be a good
But
one.
yeah, until next time, we will see you guys tomorrow on the Gundam Explained show.
Yeah.
Catch y'all later. Have a good night.
See y'all.